Okay, hello. Um, I'm here today with Dr. Robert Wolf, and this is part of a series of interviews that I'm conducting of Winmore residents. And my motivation for doing this is because I've had some remarkable conversations with people here, and to my surprise, I learned amazing things about them. There's a rich treasure trove of undiscovered amazing experiences that is just there for the taking. We could know our next door neighbor for years and not realize that years ago they climbed Mount Everest. So I'm going to talk to Dr. Robert Wolf. I'll call you Rob.
Please.
Yes. And we're going to explore his life. And I hope that he enjoys exploring it with me. Hi, Rob.
How are you? Thank you for having me on. I'm honored and
well, it's a privilege to
and honored.
It's a privilege to get to know you.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah. Okay. So, so how long have you been a Winmore resident?
I moved down here in 2019, literally 2 months before the coronavirus epidemic. The pandemic.
From where?
From Massachusetts.
Is that where you were born?
No, I was born in Detroit, raised in Michigan. I went to med school in Michigan, University of Michigan, but lived half my life in New England, half my life in Michigan, and I've been down here in Southern Florida at Winmore since 2019, so 7 years now already.
So what did you study in school?
In Cotwell High School was general studies, of course. College, I was a double major in biology and psychology. I thought maybe outside I'd be a psychiatrist. I was always into the neurosciences. Then med school was med school. And then I tried to get into ophthalmology. I guess I can mention that later. It was a little disappointing. It was tough, very competitive to get in. But I did get into radiology as a resident, and I was very happy with that. I think things turned out well for me that way.
I'm going to ask you about your impulse to get into ophthalmology. What attracted you to that field?
I just love the eye. The eye is the window to the brain. Like I said, I'm into the neurosciences. If I would have gotten into ophthalmology, I would have probably been a neuro-ophthalmologist. That's a subspecialty of ophthalmology. There was an attending at University of Michigan who was really impressive. He was a neurologist and then did another residency in ophthalmology, and then did his fellowship in neuro-ophthalmology. Traub, I think was his name. This is a long time ago. But
so we talk about a narrow specialty.
Very narrow, but an amazing specialty. So, but instead I became a neuroradiologist. I did a radiology residency at Brown, Rhode Island Hospital, after a 1-year internship at Framingham Hospital in Boston, or outside of Boston. And then I ended up doing a neuroradiology fellowship at Yale. So I've been very privileged, very lucky to have that kind of training, that kind of education. And
do you have a specialty within this amazingly small specialty, narrow specialty?
Well, as general radiology is the residency, right, and then neuroradiology is a subspecialty.
So you do a variety of stuff within that specialty.
I do all kinds of radiology, except for mammography. They threw me out of mammography a long time ago. I guess I like the real thing and not the X-rays of the breast. But that's and the same with feet. You know,
let's dwell on that.
I know, right? You got to have humor. We're not all modeling here. So, yeah. But neuroradiology is the study of the brain, the spine, and the head and neck. That's the basic. That's the subspecialty.
Tell me one experience you had within your field that you found particularly gratifying, challenging, meaningful.
Well, it's the whole thing.
See, we don't know anything about it.
No, I understand that.
I get some idea.
You know, what keeps coming up in my head, because, you know, I want to write a book. The second book I would write would be the things they don't teach in med school.
Yeah.
And it'd be part autobiography and part humor and part teaching the kids, you know, what you don't teach in med school, what you don't learn, all kinds of topics. But challenging every day, you know. There were some days, as a med student especially, like the first day of a new rotation, you're scared, you know, the first day of school in itself, the first day of a new semester. And that goes back to college, even high school. I mean, that kind of thing. So that's a challenge. First rotation in med school is very hard. Neurosurgery, all these guys are brilliant. It's the top of the top. I was a third-year student. The fourth-year students that were rotating through were trying to get into University of Michigan in the program. And these were really, really top guys. And so that was tough. And third year of med school was really, really challenging. I had some issues third year of residency, too, that made that challenging, too. If your mind's not completely in your work, it makes it hard. So gratifications after a while, every day, just being able to like draining an abscess and making a person feel instant relief. That's just great. That's
Well,
a great
you
thing.
see the results in human happiness, basically, right?
You do.
I mean, it's not all, the focus is not all on the technical expertise. It's also, you're concerned with your patients, right?
I want to see that. I'm seeing less of that here down in medicine in Southern Florida, but that's just my own opinion. I'm on the wrong end of the needle now, as I always say. But yeah, here's an example. Here's a great story for the book too. When I was an intern, my first night was on call. Literally, it was July 1st. My first night was a Saturday, and I was on call in the ICU. And this nice Portuguese gentleman comes in with a heart attack. He codes, goes into flash pulmonary edema, congestive heart failure. They thought he was going to die, and we actually coded him that night. And they coded and coded, half hour, 40 minutes, whatever the standard was. And then the guy we couldn't get him around. And they said, and I was an intern, he said, well, let Rob try the paddles once just so he gets comfortable with them. So I did. I tried to defibrillate, and the guy came back.
Before you became a doctor, when did you decide to become a doctor?
Probably ninth grade. I mean, before I wrote a book about my dad, in ninth grade, he was my hero, basically. I took biology, and I loved biology, and my dad was an OBGYN, and he loved his work. He would take me with him on rounds when he was not on rounds proper, but he'd take me to the hospital, take me to the cafeteria to eat. I'd wait for him in the doctor's lounge while he did rounds. And I just loved how much he loved his work. He'd walk in through the ER, smile at everybody, the nurses' aides, the doctors, the janitors, everybody. And I was just so impressed in how much he enjoyed what he did. In high school, he actually let me, he had to get permission from a patient. He actually let me go into a case with him and watch him do a hysterectomy, which was really cool. So that was the first time I was in the operating room. And then in high school and college, I started working in the hospital. First volunteering in the physical therapy department, cleaning out, hot tubs, and then volunteering in the ER, and then a janitor for a summer.
You paid your dues.
I paid my dues. A nurse's aide, and I got some great letters of recommendation from the ER doctors then, and that helped. And yeah, it was just probably ninth grade. And one of my best friends in high school was, he wanted to be a lawyer, but then he changed his mind. After meeting my dad, he was a great influence on quite a few of us, actually. But
was most of your career spent at working in hospitals or private practice, or what's the context?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, let's say my career has sometimes been tumultuous. So I've had about 26 or 27 jobs in my lifetime, but that includes being an author and taking care of my mom's affairs after she passed. That's a job. That's a full job. But I used to moonlight as a resident. I moonlit as a fellow. As a fellow, I was working 3 weekends out of 4, not a lot of free time. As an intern, the 3 weeks vacation, since I hadn't gotten into ophthalmology, I reapplied, and then I applied to radiology too. So about 100 programs I applied to. So my 3 weeks vacation were all spent interviewing. So a lot of time spent. That's not really a different job. I was a TA in genetics in college, moonlighting, like I said, and then I've had quite a few jobs, and a mix: hospital, MRI center, offices, first working in the hospitals and then working from home. Telemedicine was actually started by the radiologist 30, 40 years ago. It used to be a primitive, it was just a line, it was just a single line, like a fax line, into a big TV box that weighed a ton. And now it's all digitized and sent to you in a matter of seconds. You have multiple cases.
Now, your education doesn't stop with the formal education.
Correct.
You learn on the job, you learn from the experiences. I would imagine you learn a lot from your college as well.
Always, yeah. And then we have CME. There's continued medical education. There was a requirement, X number of hours every year that you had to take just to keep up.
Along the way, were there some insights that kind of, something occurred to you all of a sudden, an epiphany or whatever?
Yeah, I suppose. I can't think of anything off the cuff, but yeah. I always say to the kids, there's no substitute for experience. You already said. And team play is important too, being a team player. We try to be proud. We try to read our own cases. We try not to dump on other people. At least I don't. I mean, I can't say that for everybody. But no, but if you have a difficult case, I'm not afraid to ask a specialist in it, or just get a second set of eyes and see what they think.
When new evidence comes along.
Oh, yeah, things are completely, it's evolved so much since I was, so first of all, I'm retired now. I've been out for about a year and a half, so I'm completely retired. So things that are coming out now, PET scans, for example, positive emission tomography. That's a relatively newer modality. It's a nuclear medicine test for cancer and other diseases. IVPs, we used to do intravenous pyelograms for kidney stones and and other reasons, obstruction. Now it's all been replaced by CAT scan. IVPs almost don't exist. Barium enemas, upper GIs, almost completely replaced by upper endoscopy and lower colonoscopy. Lower,
the technology's remarkable.
It's evolved. I mean, so we still do some upper GI. I mean, I haven't done one in a while because I've been working from home here in Windmore out of Michigan for my last 5 years of my career, so before I retired.
What's fascinating to me is that they slow the progress, but nothing that reverses it, that I'm aware of.
Well, that's a great question too. So let me talk about AI real quick, because AI is sort of, I mean, I'm tired of hearing about it. I hear about it every day, every 10 minutes about AI. They're supposed to replace radiologists, supposedly, you know, an adrenal mass, a lung nodule, this kind of thing.
Right.
In fact, what I've been told now is it's actually increasing the demand for radiologists, because the interpretation, there's trust, first of all, and there's the interpretation of what the AI data brings. So I think it's going to have its role, but if it actually saves time and improves patient throughput, as they say, then radiologists are going to be expected to probably do more. They're going to be expected to have more productivity because of that. Does that make sense? So, I mean, and the expectations are high enough, and there's a lot of burnout in radiology, and I'm sure the other specialties too. The more you do something, you get tired of doing anything, and especially if you're overworked and you don't get a chance to breathe, make a phone call, get lunch, that kind of thing. It's not a recipe for good work. And then you really start to feel comfortable where you're at. Then no, you really.
Looking back, it sounds to me that you're proud of the career that you chose.
I should be. A little more tumultuous, a little more job changes than I would have liked.
Yeah.
But in the end, changing jobs, they did me a favor. For whatever reason, things worked out. Don't fight it. Accept what you have. And yeah, I think I was.
Let me point something out to you.
I think I did a pretty good job.
Looking back, look at the legacy you have in helping people's lives.
It's something you don't think about it every day, but
Yeah.
I've read thousands and thousands of MRIs and X-rays and CAT scans, ultrasounds, and hopefully it helped a lot of people.
You had a positive impact on your community.
We even saved a couple people's lives. I mean, anaphylactic reaction, that's about the scariest thing you get. You give somebody a medication like the IV contrast. So we had one when my first job. Back then, we had to inject the contrast, and there were these two thick 50 cc syringes. So it took forever to get the contrast in. Now it was just automated, hooked up to a CT scan or whatever. And the lady had an anaphylactic reaction. So I almost killed her. We coded her, we treated her the standard way, and she came around. Years later, she comes up to me at a local restaurant. I didn't remember her, and she said, Dr. Wolf, you saved my life X number of years ago. I didn't remember her. And I didn't tell her, well, I'm the guy who almost killed you because I injected the thing. My dad wrote his autobiography in the 70s with my mom. They went from paper and pencil to typewriter to computer to disc. And I read the manuscript on paper, of course, probably 30 years ago, but I didn't think much of it. I mean, I just...
Was it mainly about his career in medicine?
No, it was his autobiography from when he was a kid, and it was the history of Hungary from when he was a kid all the way to the 70s. Which is when he wrote this. They wrote the stories as though
were both your parents from Hungary?
Yes, they were both Holocaust survivors. So, and I didn't think much of it because I had career, I had family, I was busy. I didn't really think to move with it. I remember my dad's first escape. He was a 4-time escape artist. I remembered that, but I didn't remember most of the other things. Whenever we had a family argument, though, my dad would bring up how spoiled Americans were and how tough they had it at the forced slave labor camp and this and that. So that kind of thing, And my mom and dad were both Holocaust educators and history educators. They were well-rounded people. Museums, art, science, books, travel, education. They had a lot of interests, not just history, but that was a part of their lives, was educating about the Holocaust. But I didn't care about any of that first half of my life. So 1997, my dad passes away, unfortunately. 2016.
Wait, what year did you say?
1997. It's almost 30 years now. It's hard to believe. I mean, it was my first job in my career, my newly found career. I just finished fellowship like 3 years before. So he died in 97. Mom died in 2016. A historian friend of mine, and now the story's on a disc. So talk about evolution of technology. And she hands it to me and she says, well, it's a historian friend of the family, not just mine, in Michigan. She hands me the disc and says, you got to read this. And I didn't think much of it because I had to take care of my mom's affairs.
You hadn't read it before?
I did, in the manuscript 30 years earlier, but I don't know if I didn't finish it or I just didn't, it didn't hit me.
Right.
So I took care of my mom's affairs for a year, and then 2017, I retired for a year. In 2018, my friend, the other neuroradiologist I was talking about, asked me, never burn bridges, that's another lesson. He asked me to work for him because they were short. And you can work from home, read x-rays and ultrasound part-time. So I did, Wednesdays and Thursdays. And that brought me back to the book. So as a radiologist, we've got two screens. We've got the left and the right screen. The left screen is the patient queue, the list. The right screen are the images. So between cases, the left screen was my dad's autobiography, and I turned it into a biography. Almost verbatim, except I was turning first person into third person. Then, and I had to verify some.
Wait, I'm not sure I get the picture.
So Dad was talking about himself and his family and his life. And we did this.
Was it a video?
No, it was manuscript, but it was on a disc. It was
okay.
The whole story was
you
loaded on a disc.
You saw the manuscript on the left screen,
and then I'm dictating the biography on the right screen.
Your take on it, right?
Well, not my take. I mean, exactly what he said, except changing it from first person to third person, me as a biography, because my dad wasn't around anymore.
No, I got it.
So that took a year, and so now we're at 2019, and
so your father wrote the book.
He did. I mean, that was the easy part. It wasn't easy because you procrastinate, you get off to a slow start, but by the end of it, I was cruising. I was really doing 5, 10 pages at a time.
Didn't you add anything that you learned from your father and mother? Comments that you would add to the.
Well, so we tried to query the book, and we weren't getting anywhere. Agents, publishers, maybe not the right people. I was just new at this, so.
Right.
And then we were going to self-publish, but I decided to do a couple of beta reads, meaning an outside person reads the book. So one of them was another author, and she recommended Janice Harper, my co-author, and Janice did a great job. She took another year and change to change the book around to make it more than just did this, did this.
When she changed it around, did she interview you too and ask you to comment on different parts?
Oh, yeah, of course. And we both did our homework.
Because that can add.
Well, yeah, we added 20 edits. I mean, in the end, it was about 20 edits, not including the publisher's editing too. So, well, she's a professional. She's a ghostwriter. She's a professional writer. She wrote a book on how to get your PhD. She wrote a book on Madagascar. So she was and she did a great job with the book. So instead of just this to this to this, it was parallel stories, converging stories, conversations, letters to and from home.
Well, it was a smart decision on your part to recognize
it was.
that you could use some help.
If it weren't for her, I wouldn't be here. The book's won 4 awards. We can talk about that later. But if it weren't for her and the team that I have, it's another point. Back to the team play. You got to have a good team to do this. And any author, I would encourage to get help.
So let's talk about the book.